This was by far the hardest list to come up with out of the few videos I've done on this series. Every time I tried thinking of strange moments in the books cut from Game of Thrones, I would just find myself rereading the funnier lines in the books. Some of those will be on this list of 10, that once again will be in no particular order. The Wall is a pretty bleak and depressing place, but from the very first book, there's been a suspicious character living with the Night's Watch. It's a bird, a raven to be exact. Lord Commander Jeor Mormont had this large pet raven that usually hangs off his arm or shoulder, but it would say some things that would make me think it may be more than just a bird. In the books, the raven was shouting "burn, burn" over and over again when a white was trying to kill Jeor Mormont, which led to Jon setting it on fire in order to get rid of it, since regular weapons won't work. After Jeor Mormont dies, it helps Jon get elected as the new Lord Commander and now starts to hang around him. Other ravens are able to repeat some words, but this bird is different. It's likely under the control of the three-eyed raven, or possibly one of the long-dead children of the forest have a part of them still in Mormont's bird. Part of a skin changer like Bran will always remain in the animal they have bonded with, even after they are dead. Many live a second life in their animal's mind. This raven usually ends up annoying everyone around it when it repeats the same words. I'm leaning more to believe that it's a children of the forest in its mind over the three-eyed raven, since this raven is always screaming for corn, when most of these birds crave meat. I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure the children of the forest don't eat meat, since they are these nature-appreciating creatures. The children of the forest have actually always had a strong connection with ravens, and taught men to use them as messengers. And if any ravens can actually talk like parrots do, until reading the books. I remember looking into it after a chapter where Tyrion wants to kill Mormont's raven because of how annoying it is when he was visiting the Wall early in the story.
Say nevermore. Waka 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 waka.
A character I haven't talked a lot about in my videos that a lot of people have questions about is Patchface. I'm gonna say this now, this is definitely the weirdest part of the books. The Mad King sent his cousin Steffan Baratheon to Essos to find a wife with Valyrian blood for Rhaegar Targaryen. Steffan didn't find Rhaegar a wife, but he did find a jester slave. This young jester impressed him so much he bought his freedom, and wanted to bring him home to entertain his children and hopefully teach his son Stannis to laugh. Well, their ship got caught in a storm just outside their castle, and everyone died while Robert and Stannis watched their parents die in front of them. 3 days later, Patchface, who gets his name for the green and red patch tattoos on his face, washed up on the shore of Storm's End. He was thought to be dead, but he coughed up water and survived. He's a completely different person than who he was a couple days ago. He's completely lost his mind and can barely be understood. He speaks in riddles that are later discovered to be prophecy. Fool's blood, king's blood on the maiden's thigh, but chains for the guests and chains for the bridegroom, I. A clear foreshadowing of the Red Wedding, shortly before it happened. He hangs around Shireen Baratheon. She is pretty much the only person that enjoys him. Melisandre believes him to be dangerous, far more than just a simple fool. A lot of what he says is hard to interpret, which is probably why he was never in Game of Thrones. I know a lot of viewers would want answers about who he really is, and why he knows all of these things, and George Martin may never give the answers in the books. We sometimes see Varys in his jailer outfit in Game of Thrones, but in the books he's actually a master of disguises.
Lord Stark, you must be thirsty.
Varys.
It's not surprising since he spent his childhood traveling with an acting group. He's almost impossible to recognize when dressed as one of his alter egos. He goes as far as to completely hide his scent and change his voice and mannerisms. Varys is usually heavily perfumed. He probably does this so people associate him with this specific smell, so he can easily fool people with his other personas. For possibly over 20 years, Varys has been pretending to be a jailer in the Black Cells, named Rugen. He disguises his face by having fake stubble for a beard, so he looks unkempt. He smells of sour wine and sweat. There are very few prisoners in the Black Cells, so I guess this is why he's been able to get away with it for so long. But even between the other jailers, Rugen is feared and avoided. Another one of his disguises is of a begging brother. A begging brother is a religious follower of the Faith of the Seven that travel around the Seven Kingdoms. Like most begging brothers, Varys appears to be very poor and barefoot. He makes himself smell horribly in this persona, and makes his teeth look like they're rotting. One disguise is of a large mysterious man, covered by a hood that hides his hands in large sleeves. His voice is low and he smells of sweat. His last and strangest disguise is of a large older woman. He even wears a wig that has heavy dark curls. Tyrion is usually the source of some of the story's funnier moments, but one of his jokes goes pretty far in Tyrion's first POV chapter in the second book of Clash of Kings. Who murdered Jon Arryn? Cersei yanked her hand back. How should I know? The grieving widow in the Eyrie seems to think it was me. Where did she come by that notion, I wonder? I'm sure I don't know. That fool Eddard Stark accused me of the same thing. He hinted that Lord Aaron suspected or, well, believed, that you were fucking our sweet Jaime. She slapped him. Did you think I was as blind as father? Tyrion rubbed his cheek. Who you lie with is no matter to me. Although it doesn't seem quite just that you should open your legs for one brother and not the other. She slapped him. Be gentle, Cersei. I'm only jesting with you. If truth be told, I'd sooner have a nice whore. I never understood what Jaime saw in you apart from his own reflection. She slapped him. His cheeks were red and burning, yet he smiled. We hear Tormund talk about his relationship with a bear in Game of Thrones.
Oh, that was a night to remember.
But the show left out the greatest story of them all. In a horrible winter beyond the wall, Tormund claims to have cut open a giantess and slept in her belly to survive. In the spring, she fed him her own breast milk, mistaking him for one of her own children. Here's a quote of Jon inquiring about this. Is it true you killed a giant once? He asked Tormund as they rode. Ghost lopped silently beside him, leaving paw prints in the new-fallen snow. Now why would you doubt a mighty man like me? It was winter and I was half a boy and stupid the way boys are. I went too far and my horse died and then a storm caught me. A true storm. Not no little dusting such as this. Har. I knew I'd freeze to death before it broke. So I found me a sleeping giant, cut open her belly, and crawled up right inside her. Kept me warm enough, she did, but the stank near did me. The worst thing was, she woke up when the spring come, and took me for her babe. Suckled me for 3 whole moons before I could get away. Har, there's times I miss the taste of old giant's milk though. If she nursed you, you couldn't have killed her. I never did, but see you don't go spreading that about. Torment Giantsbane has a better ring to it than Torment GIANTSBABE, and that's the honest truth of it. So obviously the killing of a giant and sleeping the giantess is completely made up by Tormund, but I love how ridiculous Tormund makes this chapter. Pretty much every character in the books is a few years younger than they are on the show. It would be kind of weird seeing teenagers marrying and having children on TV, so the writers aged characters like Jon, Daenerys, and Joffrey. Tommen is like 9 when he becomes king, and giving someone so young a title like Protector of the Realm and the Lord of the Seven Kingdoms can come with some spoiled brat behavior. The Tyrells have been trying to manipulate Tommen to control him, and he really looks up to Loras. Here's a hilarious quote of him demanding Cersei to allow Loras to train him to fight. Margaery says that everyone has to do what the king says. I want my white coursers saddled on the morrow so Loras can teach me to joust. I want a kitten too, and I don't want to eat beets. He crossed his arms. An island called the Isle of Cedars, close to the ruins of Valyria, was hit by a tsunami caused by the Doom 400 years ago. It wiped out the people that once lived here. Monkeys were somehow able to survive, probably because they were high up on the trees. But now, none of the monkeys fear humans because they don't know what they're capable of. Euron Greyjoy sends his brother Victarion to Meereen with a marriage proposal for Daenerys. When Victarion is anchored by the Isle of Cedars, he comes across some of these fearless monkeys. Victarion is this serious and angry character, so he forbids any monkeys on his fleet, but they're everywhere, jumping from ship to ship above them. Even the monkeys were amused. They chattered overhead, and one flung down a handful of his own shit to splatter on the boards. Victarion Greyjoy mistrusted laughter. The sound of it always left him with the uneasy feeling that he was the butt of some jape he did not understand. Euron Crow's Eyes had oft made mock of him when they were boys. Their mockery oft came disguised as praise, and sometimes Victarion had not even realized he was being mocked, not until he heard the laughter. Then came the anger, boiled up at the back of his throat, until he was like to choke upon the taste. That was how he felt about the monkeys. Their antics never brought so much as a smile to the captain's face, though his crew would roar and hoot and whistle. And a few lines later, George Martin delivers one of the strangest lines to break the tension of Victarion's boat. Monkey shit rained down around them, splat, splat, splat. That's an actual quote from the 56th chapter of A Dance of Dragons, The Iron Suitor. Something that seems out of place in the book story is Tyrion's acrobatic abilities. For some reason, he's able to do a bunch of flips. Early in the first book, when Jon Snow encounters Tyrion, he's up on a high ledge and Jon thinks he needs help getting down because he's a dwarf. Instead, he leaps forward and lands on his hands, then does a flip to land perfectly. He apparently learned these tricks from his uncle Tyrion Lannister when he was younger. Tyrion was nothing like his older brother Tywin. He was the fun Lannister, and never got along with his big brother. He would praise Tyrion's tumbling tricks when he would do it in their family home, Castle Rock, which would of course piss off the serious, no-nonsense Tywin. Tyrion does a few of these tricks throughout the books at random times, but I'm perfectly fine with cutting out this strange trait this awesome character has. For a while, many believed Brienne to be the killer of Renly Baratheon, since she was the one in the tent when it happened. One of these people in the books was Loras Tyrell, who we all know was in love with Renly. When Brienne brings Jaime to King's Landing, Loras immediately wants to kill her. He tells her to draw her sword so he didn't kill a defenseless woman, but Jaime gets between them to stop it. Loras ignores his superior's orders and pushes him aside, and that's when Jaime delivers this hilarious insult. Jaime grabbed the boy with his good hand and yanked him around. "I'm the Lord Commander of the King's Guard, you arrogant pup. You're a commander, so long as you wear that white cloak. Now sheath your bloody sword, or I'll take it from you and shove it up someplace even Renly never found." A line in the books so out of left field that it just made me pause for a little while and question what I was reading came from Pip, in Jon's third POV chapter in A Dance with Dragons. "The night is dark and full of turnips. Let us pray for venison, my children, with some onions and a bit of tasty gravy." I don't know if I find this weird or just funny, but we get to read some dark humor from time to time at the Night's Watch, who are slowly running out of food and dealing with constant danger. If you can think of any strange or funny moments that should be on this list, you can let us all know in the comments. Thanks for watching this one, guys.